When African countries regained independence, all of them inherited systems of government that were inherited from their former colonizers. And none of them will ever succeed on the basis of those inherited governance systems. We are in a continent that is today divided into 54 countries out of a scheme which was hatched by European powers in 1884 and 1885 when they sat in Berlin to divide the continent of Africa into spheres of influence, into hunting grounds. The British had their hunting ground, the French did, the Belgians did, the Italians did, the Germans did, the Portuguese did. Then of course, we resisted them and they appeared to leave and we celebrated. But the question is, did they leave? And if they leave, if they left the continent in which they lived and still are living, what impact did they have? Is the impact still with us? Have we liberated ourselves? And why did we drive them away? I can still remember those words that I listened to every so often, spoken on the 6th day of March 1957 by Ghana's Kwame Nkrumah, that the independence of Ghana means nothing if the rest of Africa is not free. I can still remember him saying that we are regaining independence, that we may govern ourselves, that we may harness our resources, that we may have education that is in the best interest of our people, that we may take control of our cocoa and coffee and yams. The question this afternoon, have we? The question is, after all the countries regained independence and we started electing our leaders, did they change? Did they husband our resources in a better way? We are not truly free. There is another project that has inherited colonialism. It is neocolonialism. The neocolonizer has not left. He is with us and he is using some of us, and he is the enemy from within that we must be wary of. The question is, the promises that our founding fathers made to us, have we fulfilled them as we talk about democracy and constitutions? Who brought the constitutions to us? Which constitutions do our traditional rulers operate from? Are they written? For whose interests are they written? As I talk about democracy and development now, I want you to cast your eyes across the continent of Africa now. Look at young people dying as they leave the coast of Senegal. When you tell them about democracy and elections, are you talking to them when they are dying? When they are dying in the Mediterranean, are you talking to them? If you go into a room where there are 10 young Africans, 8 of them want to run away from the continent of Africa, even in countries where there are so-called constitutional governments. This is the Africa that we are talking about today. When you go to Australia, Europe, and America, young Africans are being humiliated. If you doubted it, you only saw what happened in Ukraine when the war broke out, see how Africans were being humiliated. The question that we are asking today, and the question that is alive and well today, and the debate that we ought to wrap our minds around today is, what is democracy? Whose democracy? Is there a possibility that we who are gathered here today, as Carter G. Woodson said in 1933, we are so thoroughly miseducated that in fact, even when we think we are getting it right, we are getting it wrong? Is it a possibility that one of the things that we must do in assemblies such as this and at all times is to unlearn some of the indoctrination to which we have been subjected, so that we may learn things that can help the continent of Africa? How is it that every time we think that we have diagnosed the disease properly and that we have a new antidote, when we apply that antidote, a new wound appears? How is it? How is it that when we regained independence in 1960, it started with coup d'etats, and as we speak now, we have coup d'etats? If our memories are not serving us well, don't you remember that no sooner had Congo regained independence in 1961 than there was a coup d'etat and Patrice Emery Lumumba was killed? If you doubt me, is it not the case that in 1963 in Togo they killed Sylvanus Olympia? If you doubt me, is it not the truth that in 1966 they overthrew Kwame Nkrumah? Is it not the truth that in this country they took away the government of Nnamdi Azikiwe and Abubakar Tafawa Balewa in 1967? Is it not true that they eliminated Modibo Keita in Mali? That they took away Ahmed Ben Bella in Algeria? So our story is, as the French would say, plus ça change, plus c'est la même change. The more things change, the more they remain the same. And if that is the case, we must ask ourselves uncomfortable questions, which will give us uncomfortable answers. Many times we don't want to ask those uncomfortable questions because we know the answers and we do not want to hear the answers. And we are assembled here to remind ourselves that the reason why we lament about Africa is that it appears that the systems of governance that we inherited and that we have been deploying for our benefit continue to put us at the foot of the ladder. We do not complain because there have been no changes and improvement in our circumstances. In certain cases, there have been. But as Uganda's Yoweri Museveni says, and I agree with him, what is the point of fighting as to who is taller than the other when you are all dwarfs? This is the space in which Africa finds herself. So that the state of California in the United States of America has a GDP bigger than all the countries of Africa combined. This is undesirable. It is undesirable that a country which is great in prospect, for example, like Nigeria, with a population of 250 million, generates less power than Costa Rica, which has a population of 5 million and generates 3 times more power than Nigeria. It's undesirable. This is what we are talking about. We are talking about countries which have GDPs, which ought not to be the GDPs that they have. And we are saying that this must be because of the systems of governance that we have. I heard His Royal Majesty so very keenly, and I agree with him. What must we do? What is the nexus between good governance and development? And what is development? I remember Julius Kambarage Nyerere saying in 1966 that when they come and tell us that development are roads and airports, we agree with them. But that is not the end of development. The beginning and the end of development is human resources, Mwalimu said.